Donald Trump just posted that he expects to be indicted by special counsel Jack Smith. This follows a bombshell report from the Washington Post that just came out today, stating that Donald Trump directed his aides at Mar-a-Lago to move boxes containing classified material, get this, the day before the DOJ arrived on June 3rd, 2022, in response to a subpoena, aka obstruction. The Washington Post report also states that Trump held, quote, dress rehearsals for hiding classified documents from the Department of Justice in the event they conducted a search. Also, that Trump kept classified material in his office in public view, which he showed to visitors, and that Trump engaged in obstructive conduct after the August 8th, 2022 search by the Department of Justice and FBI as well. Folks, buckle up. We expect indictments soon. Speaking of dress rehearsals, Ron DeSantis is clearly not ready for prime time. Ron DeSantis had the most disastrous announcement for the launch of a presidential campaign in the history of America. I'm not just talking about President of the United States. I'm talking about middle school student government president races. I mean, my launch by far when I ran for president of my middle school was better. No more soggy pizza in the cafeteria. It was way better.
What a platform. What a platform.
Was that the platform?
Yeah, no more soggy pizzas.
A soggy pizza platform is a good platform, and no more soggy pizza. It's a good platform.
The leader of the terrorist group known as the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes and Kelly Meggs, who were previously convicted of seditious conspiracy, who look like every freaking bad guy in any movie you ever seen, were sentenced to big prison sentences today. And by the way, the Department of Justice remains undefeated in getting guilty convictions in all of their trials against January 6th insurrectionists. That number is in the hundreds of trials and basically nearly 1,000 convictions. Just think about those numbers. Republicans, by the way, well, they've fled Washington, D.C., leaving America on the brink of a default on our debt. They just left. Okay, the United States Constitution, which Republicans pretend to care about, obviously they don't, but in Section 4 of the 14th Amendment, it states, quote, the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. Shall not be questioned. Yet, MAGA Republicans not only question it, they intentionally use it to hold America and the world economy hostage. This is pure evil, but I wouldn't expect anything less from the modern day MAGA Republican Trump cult, right? The same Republican Party that before they fled held a hearing on the gas stove conspiracy that they created. Seriously, the hearing that they held in the House of Representatives, I had to check if it was real, was based on their gas stove conspiracy. Modern day MAGA Republicans, honestly, are the most fiscally irresponsible and frankly irresponsible people in general in everything they do. I'll just give you two other examples, right? Today, the treasurer of the most prominent Republican Political Action Committee group, the group that runs CPAC, resigned over massive financial improprieties that he observed being committed by the leader of that group, and also a committee in Texas that was appointed by the Republican House of Representatives recommended that the Republican Attorney General, Ken Paxton, be impeached for his financial improprieties. Ken Paxton's response was to call the Republican Speaker of the House in Texas a liberal and then demand that he resign. Folks, that's what's going on. We'll talk about all of that and more here on the Midas Touch podcast. Brett and Jordy. I called that DeSantis thing. I said exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, we were talking about it all week, not to toot our own horn here, but yeah, Ben put it out in public on the tweet to have it on the record. But we've been saying ever since this whole Twitter space with DeSantis was announced, we were all talking internally to each other and we were like, this thing is going to be an absolute absolute failure. Like, it's so obvious. The writing's on the wall. Everything about this is set up to be an absolute disaster. Why would he do this? And you just realize, you know what, this whole week, whether it was from the debt ceiling to the DeSantis launch to what we're seeing in Texas and CPAC, it really shows just, it doesn't it encapsulate the Republican Party? I mean, it's like incompetence meets bad faith meets malpractice meets evil meets cynicism. It's just everything wrapped up in a tidy bow for us all to see. And it's really getting exposed in these last few days as all these things kind of coalesce before our eyes. Jordy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. The DeSantis thing was hilarious. And I said this last time we're on the show. Look, Ben's predictions, the kid does not miss. And Brett, I give it to you too. Like, both you guys are just been on fire. It's on record. You could go back to the podcast and listen to the predictions, and just like very data driven, just very smart approach. Every time you hear me, Jordy, have a differing opinion from the other two brothers, just go with the other two brothers at this point, because they have proven to not be wrong.
Well, Jordy, your prediction was what? Just remind everybody.
Why don't you relax, Ben? We don't need to bring all the old history over here. So I just to bring it back, because I did then walk it back immediately the next episode. There was one moment where I said, I don't think DeSantis is going to run. He's going to lose Florida if he announces a presidential bid to Trump, which I still think he will. He's going to just honestly make a jerk of himself. And at the time, I was looking at a data point, which was there was a law on the books that needed to be overturned by the state legislature in Florida, which didn't allow a sitting governor to run for president. And so it kind of came down to the 11th hour there, whether or not that was going to be overturned or changed or updated. And they got the votes. And I see Brett with his hand up, so I'll let him chime in.
Well, Jordy said he only said it on one episode. I actually made a montage of all the episodes that Jordy said it on, and we're going to play that right now. I'm just kidding, Jordy.
I told you, Jordy, I said, look, let me abolish all of your data points. I said, Jordy, you're a little bit younger than me, but you don't understand the fragility of the malignant, narcissistic male ego. Yeah. And somebody like DeSantis, it is an actual sickness. He can see the writing on the wall, but there will be the writing on the wall, but he won't be able to see it at all. And that's exactly what happened. Just totally and utterly incompetent. We will get to that in a moment, but I want to start off this episode by framing this in the gaslighting that large media networks do. This is the frustration I think that we all have here within the pro-democracy community, because the media is just so wrong. Like, I'm not just talking about Fox and the right-wing fascist echo chamber. I'm talking about even places like the New York Times, where they come up with this idea of let's just tell this both sides story, and they legitimize the extremism. They legitimize the extremists who are trying to destroy them. And the issue is that, by the way, like, their polling is based on that framework, which is erroneous to begin with. But like, most Americans look at that and go, like, what are you talking about? The great thing that I like to do here on the Midas Touch Network with a lot of the news hits that we do and on the podcast is we just show you the clips sometimes, and we just shut up and we go, take a look at that. Like, what does that look like to you? Because people don't need to see something and then have someone tell them that what they just saw is something different. We've seen it. Like, we know what extremism looks like. We know it's crazy when Republicans send congressional delegations to sing songs with January 6th insurrectionists. You don't have to give me a story that there's extremism on both sides. I don't need to hear that. It's the craziest thing in the world. They're making iTunes beats. They're singing tracks with terrorists. No, that's freaking crazy fascist stuff right there. And American people know it. I see the comments. I see the conversations of people saying what the MAGA Republicans did before January 6th is unforgivable. What they've done since January 6th is treasonous and traitorous. But take a look at this post by the New York Times today. You know where their coverage is going to go. It is both sides ism right there. They call it the fight to define extremism. On the one hand, they've got the Democrat Jamal Bowman. On the other hand, they've got the MAGA Republican Byron Donalds, who supports every single thing that Donald Trump does. And this is what they say. The article goes, conversations with two lawmakers reveal how the parties regard and exploit the other side when it comes to questions of extremism. And it's called the run-up team. That's what they're calling this ridiculous crew who gets an F- for this. Two things are true. Both sidesism can flatten the realities of political extremism in this country. Okay, maybe they're figuring it out, maybe, right? And many voters really do see the Democratic and Republican parties as equally extreme at this moment. The parties know this, and they're fighting to convince voters that it's the other side that's gone too far, that Republicans are the party of Donald Trump, election denial, January 6th, and 6-week abortion bans, and that Democrats are the party of wokeism and the squad. Seriously? On the one hand, you've got Republicans who support treason and destroying our democracy. On the other hand, you've got Democrats who respect the basic humanity of all humans. There's extremism here, Brett and George. It's just also extreme here.
Yeah, on the one hand, you have a party trying to overthrow the United States government, threatening minimum wage employees at Targets, throwing things on the floor, just trying to consistently destroy all institutions in the United States of America. On the other side, you have some people who believe that transgender people have a right to exist and don't want a theocracy in America and push back against that sort of hatred, and then get told, oh, you're trying to cancel me by being against my hateful ways. They can't even define wokeism, in the first place. And they want to make that the crux of the argument here. And anytime anybody tries to tell me, well, this is a little outrageous, right? I mean, look at this clip. Look at what this person said. This person said an outrageous thing on the left. This is what the left is all about. And they show me that clip. My first response is always, who is that? Who is this person you're showing me? I would like to know. Are they a party leader, or are they a justice? What are they? Because I'll show you a billion people in the Republican Party in positions of power who are actually doing extremist stuff that actually have control over your lives, not whatever random person libs of TikTok found to make a caricature out of the left. It's such an outrageous false equivalency that everybody just likes to jump on and cross these mainstream channels, especially, you have like a Bill Maher, who's like, his whole thing is about like, oh, the wokeness has gone too far. It's like, just shut up, man.
You know what
just
it is too? It's like they get some, like, first off, like Bill Maher, for example, and I know Jordy has strong feelings on this. It's like, you're not canceled. You have a television show on HBO, okay, where you're making like $10 million a year. All these people crying about being canceled, like, you're not being canceled. Like, you are a wealthy, affluent person. Because somebody wrote a mean tweet about you that you get really sensitive about, that's how you feel canceled, because you've said some offensive stuff sometimes. The very nature of your previous show was called Politically Incorrect. You may have upset people who want to criticize you, and you're that thin-skinned where you feel that is a destruction of your identity. It's all these like thin-skinned men who are just so emotional. Yeah. It's like you're just being criticized, buddy. That comes with the turf, okay? You're being criticized. You're not being canceled. It's such a whiny BS thing. But then here you have New York Times like buys into this thing. Like, we'll talk about Ron DeSantis, right now in his announcement. But what was more frightening than even how incompetent he was the stuff he said afterwards, when he then went on Fox and they tried to promote the crap out of him and tried to basically protect him from the incompetence. And it's like, about a Marxist wokist mind virus. I'm like, what are you talking about? A Marxist woke mind virus? Like there's real things to talk about. And in a normal media culture, in a normal media environment, every media that cared about our democracy would be saying exactly what we're saying here. We know that's what the people feel. We know that because the movement that's developed here are all people cutting their cord saying, what the heck are they saying? What do these people even mean? So let's talk about the Elon Musk and let's get to that point. So just so you could put up my prediction where I said this is what was going to happen. I made this prediction before the event right here. And I wrote, DeSantis Twitter Spaces announcement will be a disaster. Twitter is glitchy. Elon bad at interviews. Too hard for DeSantis to figure out. Trump can co-opt. DeSantis has annoying voice. Can't control unknowns. Look like Elon puppet. Shows very poor judgment. I mean, look, the reality is me making that prediction is like saying LeBron James may score a basket in one of the games that he plays, because the data is fairly reflective of that's what's going to happen. Pull up that other photo of Ron DeSantis, just some highlights that informed my analysis. He put on a mask the wrong way. He didn't know how to put on a mask. He wiped his schnot. Remember when it's DeSantis, we call it schnot, on someone who was at his event's shoulder. He randomly laughed before the story even began. Like he has so lack of connection to humanity that he doesn't know that you laugh.
Ben, that's why it's good that he linked up with somebody who's incredibly social and charismatic, like an Elon Musk, right? To help him really carry that conversation along.
So you do the thing on Twitter freaking Spaces, which you're guaranteed to have a very small audience. Because I know people believe on Twitter that Twitter's like everything. It actually has a very small market share. Not that many people use Twitter Spaces. Since Elon's taken it over, Twitter is just super glitchy. It like breaks every day. There's always a few hours in the day where there's something wrong with Twitter. And there's no way that Twitter Spaces was going to work the way there was no way. And so sure enough, that's what happened. We're going to play this little clip because it gets super annoying after a while. We did a very small montage of what took place during this launch event. Mind you, this Ron DeSantis has all the money, all the advisors in the world to plan this thing. And this is what they've come up with. Play this clip.
It starts off with 8.5 minutes of silence into this. You got Elon, Ron, and David Sachs, venture capitalist who works with Elon.
David Sachs here. Elon is sitting next to me, and we want to welcome you to this historic Twitter Spaces event, and more broadly, a first in the history of social media. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce two individuals who've done more to loosen the.
Oh, it's off.
All right,
30
sorry
seconds
about
of
that.
silence.
We've got so many people here that I think we are kind of melting the servers, which is a good sign. Might have surprised many, but not those of us who've known and worked with Elon for nearly a quarter century. His commitment to freedom and his willingness to put his money where his mouth is, upset the narrative control imposed on us by our government. He kept Florida schools open.
We know where it's going to head after that.
It was like that for 20 minutes. They were trying to get the thing going, and it was not working. And then at the end of it, they tried to claim that it had all these views. But anytime anybody logged on during the silence, even if it was for less than a second, it counts as a view. And so what they don't realize is they could claim all the views they want. A lot of people clicked it and then turned off or didn't listen, and there were problems. And the whole thing was an absolute mess, an absolute embarrassment. And that's how Ron DeSantis decided to launch his presidential campaign. And that was not just done in a vacuum. I just want to say, Ben, before you start hitting the other stuff, I mean, this followed weeks and weeks of continuous stumbles on the campaign trail. We watched that ridiculous foreign tour that Ron DeSantis did, where he did the bobblehead thing and he like yelled at the reporters in Israel. It was one thing after the next. We saw from some of the photos that Ben showed up, we saw Ron DeSantis wiping his schnot in New Hampshire. I think that was in Iowa. We saw his other interaction in New Hampshire where the guy said, "Hi, my name is Tom." And he said, "Okay." And then just walked away. The other thing in Iowa where the guy goes, Mr. DeSantis, I drove 2 hours. I drove 2 hours to see you, Mr. DeSantis. It's such an honor to meet you. He goes, oh, that's cool. And then he just walks away. The guy had the worst few weeks ever for any sort of fake political candidate that on his fake presidential tour. And then his one moment to reset is this brilliant, I'm obviously being sarcastic, Twitter Spaces, which shows such a lack of judgment right there. And then that was the result that we got.
Here's the thing, though. It wasn't that he just had 3 bad weeks. It's that for the past 3 weeks, people outside of Florida have got to actually see him. This is who he is. He is a weird, little, strange person. And he projects his hatred, his self-hatred, because he knows what a putrid and vile person he is. So he has this nastiness, like a lot of these MAGA Republicans, which they want everybody to be as miserable as them. We all want to go on with our lives. We want to go for a walk. We want to watch the movies we like, shop where we like, have friends with who we want to be friends with. We don't need the government being used by Republicans to control our rights, to control the bodies of women, but they are miserable people. They want you to feel their misery. And a lot of it stems from that. And so the data points, Jay, when you look at, okay, well, what's motivating a Trump or a Marjorie Taylor Greene or a Lauren Boebert? What's motivating them? If you look at their underlying miserable pathology, okay, they want you to feel like them. And it is a sickness. It is a sickness, which is why one of the most important things we talk about here on the Midas Touch Network, though, is optimism, is love, is compassion. And we don't just say those things as buzzwords. It's because the whole agenda, as we talk about it with MAGA Republicans, is to bring you down, to wear you out so they can control you and suck you in to their miserable freaking existence. But let's watch what Ron DeSantis did in the evening. So after he had that horrible appearance, oh, by the way, a great troll by Joe Biden. I should mention this. Joe Biden put a link to his campaign website and says, this link works.
This is while it was happening also. It was in the middle of the tech issues. It was so genius. But before we go into the clips, I just want to say, what pisses me off the most, honestly? It goes even beyond, oftentimes it's beyond the main people. It's beyond people like DeSantis or beyond people like Musk or beyond people like Trump. It's the people who just back them up no matter what, pretend like nothing's wrong, and are the enablers. The enablers, to me, are the absolute worst. And all the people on Team DeSantis, or all the people like the David Sachs guy, who's a venture capitalist, who has a podcast, who's invests in Twitter and has been Elon's friend for a while, literally wrong about everything, tried to cause a run on the banks. Like for a guy, it just shows you that having billions of dollars does not make you very bright, because this guy is legitimately incorrect about everything. And then after, instead of just saying like, can we bring this back, people? Instead of just saying like, yeah, you know what, it didn't go as planned, but it's new tech. What are you going to do? We'll try our best. We're going to do a new thing in Florida. It's going to be great. We're going to get all of our people together. No, instead of that, what do? It went perfectly. That was exactly what we wanted. Look at all the attention we're getting for this. That was an amazing announcement. We had the most people listening of any stream ever in the history of streams. Like, none of that was true. It was a complete disaster. Yeah, he totally spicered it.
He spicered it.
And that person, to me, is even worse than a DeSantis. Like, when you are
Spicer Putined it. That's just the playbook of the authoritarian. Yeah. The denazification in Ukraine is going exactly as planned. We are making major progress on it's all lies. It's everything. Yeah. It is exactly.
It goes back to what you said in the beginning, Ben, which is, if I watched the clip, I know what I saw.
Yes.
Do not tell me what I saw with my own lying eyes. How about that? I saw what happened. So don't gaslight me and tell me that disaster, which you heard 2 of 20 minutes of, was a huge resounding success and it was everything you hoped and dreamed. Shut up. And that's what this whole movement is built on, just lying to you and gaslighting you.
Do we have the video? I'll go out of order here a little bit. Do we have the video of
Brett loves when you do that. It really helps.
I set it up though.
Set it up. Let me see.
Go ahead.
She's like a GOP. I think she's a county chair now. Is it in the Georgia Republican Party?
Yeah.
She's got a major role in the Republican Party in Georgia. She just did an interview. GOP county chair. Big important role. So Brett, as you talk about these like enablers, when you talk about the people who are furthering this, like it is MAGA Republicanism is a community built on what we're about to show you. So I will let you see it with your own eyes. Okay. Watch what happens in this interview with one of the GOP chairs, okay, in Georgia right now. Play this clip.
More and more, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. So is it or not? I don't know 100%, but it's just, it doesn't make sense the other way. Now that you see it.
The people that defend the globe don't know anything about the globe, because if they knew 1/10 of what Matt and I know about the globe, they would be flat earthers, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
I can't unsee this. All the globes everywhere. I turn on TV, there's globes in the background. There's globes on there right here. Like this would be a globe if I was a normal person. Like everywhere there's globes. You see them all the time. I mean, it's constant. My children will be like, Mama, globe, 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 globe. They're everywhere. And that's what they do to brainwash. And so for me, if it is not a conspiracy, if it is, real, why are you pushing so hard? Everywhere I go, every store, you buy a globe. There's globes everywhere, every movie, every TV show, news media. Why?
So assess for yourself how that makes you feel right there. And I could show you like countless clips of this. But Brett, to your point, these aren't random people. She's someone who has decision-making power in the Republican Party. And I'll give you just another example.
She ran for governor.
Real quick. How about when she accidentally told on herself during that whole rant, when she says, if I was a normal person, I would, that was lunacy.
By the way, they look, that's how, but it's an insight into their mind. That's how they approach every issue. So it's, there's Pride merch at Target, like there's been every single year for decades. It must be a conspiracy to turn your kids gay and trans. It's the woke conspiracy LGBTQ agenda that they're trying to indoctrinate your kid. Oh, there's globes. I saw a globe on the TV. It's indoctrinating that round earth agenda when the earth is flat. They're always looking for the conspiracy. They've never seen a conspiracy they didn't like. That's how they view the world.
And to your point, they look for it. They drive to the Target. They walk to the section, they hold the item, and then they go, ah!
I can't wait for someone to clip that.
You don't have to go there. That's the great thing about freedom, real freedom. If you don't like that, if you don't want your children to see that, just don't go there, okay? You don't have to go to that section, okay? Or if you see it, you can just walk past it, okay? You walk up to it and hold the item and then get angry about it. To your point, you are looking for the conspiracy to find a reason to hate people. And again, I could fill up the whole show with examples like that. I'm not.
We just do a whole show where it's just like this, where you just start like pissed off about things. It's, it's like the Family Guy. You know what really grinds my gears? And it's just 2 hours of this.
Tennessee Republicans, the Tennessee Speaker of the House, appointed a woman to write the state's social studies standards who says 9/11 was an inside job, that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump, that January 6th insurrectionists were really Antifa, and that Barack Obama created tornadoes. That is how the curriculum in social studies in Tennessee will be taught, because the Tennessee Republicans appointed her to oversee that curriculum. Again, when we see this, okay, we recognize that is insane, that is crazy, that is dangerous. So I don't need the New York Times or freaking
Thank you.
CNN or someone to tell me that I am being extreme for being repulsed by this. I am not. All I'm saying is I respect the basic decency of human beings and their right to exist and their humanity. And I am compassionate towards their very existence. That's not a radical lefty agenda position to have. I think that's where we should all be on the normal human being spectrum right there.
We could all agree that Obama probably did create the tornadoes. Like, she's probably true about that. This is insane. It's absolutely insane that they give this woman the power to dictate the education that your child gets. What's the term? Is it kakistocracy, which is basically putting the most incompetent people in positions of power who should not have that sort of power? That is how Russia works. That is how the Republican Party works. It is the same exact playbook. They want to destroy these institutions. And meanwhile, it's also a cause and effect of their own doing with a piece like that from the New York Times. You know, you go, they spend all week long writing pieces about the woke this, woke that, woke indoctrination. They do a ton. They post a ton of op-eds, and then they do a piece. Why do so many Americans think the left is too woke and extreme? Well, what have you been pushing in your paper every single day? That message. And then you're surprised when the data reflects that. I mean, you are crafting this narrative, which is completely BS.
Beyond BS. Let's take a look, though. So it was a big disaster, the DeSantis announcement. Biden trolled him epically, says this link works when the Twitter Spaces was not working.
Oh, is that what we're talking about? DeSantis? I forgot.
Yeah, we're going back to DeSantis right now. And then Biden released this rapid response video. I will play here. Do you want to show the link works first, or should we just go right to the video?
Wait, let's go to the video, and I will. I'll narrate the video because it's a lot of text.
All right, narrate the video.
That was something that we were very proud to do.
So I would embrace proposals, like Paul Ryan offered.
I'm not a candidate.
Yeah, audio listeners, you're gonna have to subscribe.
It was too quick. It was too quick for me to talk over. So I like
how you abandoned ship. I called the audible midway through.
I was like, this is not going to work. Yeah, the last one was hilarious. So the last one for the audio listeners, actually go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. No, I'll tell you. The last one for the audio listeners said, like, can you launch a presidential campaign? And it had the feedback of the event that occurred.
By the way,
showed
the audio listeners. Like, that's not our feed. That's not happening on the Midas Touch Podcast Network.
They're like, they're having some audio issues today.
No, that was the Twitter feed from the imperfect launch, if you will.
Everybody remember, we should do a montage of like famous presidential announcements throughout history. And you have like, Reagan doing his announcement. You have, Obama doing his announcement. You have Clinton doing his announcement. And then you have DeSantis.
Why would you do it? It's just, because he's incompetent. Like it's a microcosm of what will happen. Everything they do is incompetent and wrong. But play this clip right here where he's asked on Fox after that disaster. He's asked a very simple question about what would you do with Ukraine? And ultimately his response is something about the woke mind virus or this or that. Do we have that clip, Brett?
Yeah, I have the woke mind virus. Let me see if I can get the other Ukraine while we play this one.
Well, first of all, the woke mind virus is basically a form of cultural Marxism. At the end of the day, it's an attack on the truth. And because it's a war on truth, I think we have no choice but to wage a war on woke.
He says to wage a war on woke. Okay, so if you walked down the street and you said that sentence to somebody, the woke mind virus, waging a war on the truth, so we need to wage a war on the woke. They would look at you like you're freaking insane if you said that to somebody. And what that shows me is it's something that I've been saying on this show now for the last few weeks. It's that these Republican politicians live on frickin' Twitter. They live on the internet. Everything they see is through the prism of the most extreme weirdos on Twitter. And then they regurgitate the same things that they say. But to a normal human being who like goes outside and like touches grass occasionally, like it sounds frickin' bizarre. The woke mind virus, the war on woke, the waging of what are you even talking about? I got the Ukraine clip. So let's play the Ukraine clip. This is DeSantis's plan for how he's going to handle the war in Ukraine. Let me know if you know what he's even talking about.
All right. You wore the uniform. If you are elected president, you may be the first one in a while to have worn the uniform. How would you address the ongoing war in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine on day one of a Ron DeSantis presidency?
Well, first, I think what we need to do as a veteran is recognize that our military has become politicized. You talk about gender ideology, you talk about things like global warming that they're somehow concerned in. That's not the military that I served in. We need to return our military to focusing on commitment, focusing on the core values and the core mission. That would be something that I could take care of on day one. There'll be a new sheriff in town as commander-in-chief. And I think you'll see recruiting start to get back to where it needs to be because people don't want to join a woke military. And I think it's been really, really problematic. Look, in terms of what's going on over in Eastern Europe, I'd like to see a settlement of this. I do not want to see a wider war. I think it's completely unknowable what it will look like in January of 2025. But I would not want to see the United States with our troops get enmeshed in a war in Russia or in Ukraine.
Jordy.
I mean, I'm not even I don't even know what he was getting at. But if you look at Gowdy real quick, that's Gowdy, right? From Fox. Yeah. Okay. Do you know what is just coming to my mind as he talks and just looking at the man? He looks like Mr. Mackey from South Park. Do you guys remember that?
I'll pull up a photo. I just realized
one of the parts though about what DeSantis said too, though, which there's so much ridiculous stuff that he said. There's going to be a new sheriff in town and the commander-in-chief. Why don't you say there's going to be a new? Why did you say there's going to be a new commander?
It does look like a man. And just look at the scene on Fox also. You have DeSantis speaking with a former Republican in the House of Representatives who's now a host on Fox News. It's just, it's all one incestuous Republican family over there on Fox where they're trying to boost each other. And he didn't answer the question. His plan to solve the invasion of Ukraine is to end wokeness in the military. Like, how is that even a serious position to have? Like, dude, what are you talking about? It avoids the question entirely. It shows that you're utterly unfit. You say people don't want to join the military because of wokeness. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. I've talked to so many people about this. It's absolute bullshit. The reason why a lot of people are afraid to join the military is because they fight for this country and then they come back and people like the Trey Gowdys of the world, the Republicans of the world, vote to strip them of their veterans benefits and they end up getting nothing for all that they serve. That's why it's not because, wokeness. That's not a thing in the military, okay? It's absolutely a ridiculous tangent. But sorry, Ben. Go.
We got a lot to talk about here on the Midas Touch podcast, including the
fired up, folks.
I'm fired up. And by the way, I'm optimistic that indictments from special counsel Jack Smith are on the near horizon. Even Donald Trump posted that he believes he's going to be indicted soon. We'll talk about that and more when we return from this quick break.
Oh, hey, when did you get here? Let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Henson Shaving. Look, everyone knows how annoying cheap razors are. The cuts, the irritation, the frustration. And don't get me started with subscription razor services, the headaches that those can cause. That's why you gotta meet Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the ISS. That's the International Space Station and Mars rover, and now they're bringing precision engineering to your shaving experience. Razor blades, they're like diving boards. The longer the board, the more wobble, the more nicks, cuts, and scrapes. A bad shave, it isn't a blade problem. It's an extension problem. By using aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, which is less than the thickness of human hair. That means a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. It gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades, and no obsolescence. The Henson razor, it works with standard dual edge blades to give you that old school shave with the benefit of new school tech. Once you own the Henson razor, it's only about $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. My first shave with the Henson razor was incredibly refreshing. The design is sleek and the durability is top notch. The Henson razor is truly much better than your run-of-the-mill quote-unquote traditional razor brand. And the affordability factor is absolutely game-changing. No more wasting your money on expensive blades. With Henson Shaving, you get a year of blades for just $5. Okay, so here's what you have to do. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/Midas to pick the razor for you and use code Midas and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/Midas and use code Midas. I have a big family, and that means there's usually a lot of trash left over by the time the work week comes to an end. And frankly, I used to feel a bit guilty about this, but then I got a Lomi. Now that I have a Lomi, it's changed the way I think about my food waste. First off, Lomi transforms my garbage into gold at the push of a button. Lomi's a countertop electric composter that turns food scraps to dirt in just under 4 hours. Now, I love composting, plus it's made cooking at home even more fun. There's no more food rotting in my garbage and smelling up the kitchen. Thanks to Lomi, I only have to take out the trash once a week. And it's a hassle-free, mess-free experience. No more leaking bags. Here's something cool too. I turn my waste into nutrient-rich dirt that I feed to my plants, lawn, or garden. That means it's not going to landfills and producing methane gas. I get to help the environment and make my life easier. And all the food scraps, plant clippings, and even those leftovers I forgot in the back of the fridge, they go back into my garden, helping me grow more nutritious food right from the backyard. I learned that food waste makes up a huge portion of our personal carbon footprint, and by reducing the amount of food that I send to a landfill, I'm helping to do my part for this planet while also feeding my garden. Now, whether you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just grow a beautiful garden, Lomi is perfect for you. Head to lomi.com/Midas and use the promo code Midas to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you head to lomi.com/Midas and use the promo code Midas at checkout. Thank you, Lomi, for sponsoring this.
We are back live on the Midas Touch podcast, and special thanks to our sponsors supporting this pro-democracy content. I want to talk about Special Counsel Jack Smith. Big developments there.
Jack Smith.
We'll get to Mad Dog, but I really do want to speak first about these MAGA Republicans in the House of Representatives basically fleeing Washington, D.C. They just left Washington, D.C. to basically leave America. We are on the brink of a default because for the first time in American history, the MAGA Republicans who control the House of Representatives are saying they are not going to raise the debt ceiling. To be very clear, it's a very perfunctory function. It's just like something that you do. It is not a controversial topic or not a controversial concept before. It's never before been used as a negotiating wedge. So the very fact that there is even negotiation is abnormal in the first place. Where negotiations take place is not over raising the debt ceiling. That's as basic as checking a box. Where negotiations take place is over the budget appropriations process and where the priorities are. That's usually done in an omnibus bill. And so here the MAGA Republicans said, we don't want to deal with it as part of appropriations. What we want to do is hold the entire global economy hostage. And we won't raise the debt ceiling, by the way, with the debt that we created to pay for past bills that we're responsible for, and crush the economy unless you enact our radical MAGA agenda. When people, friends, family, coworkers, when they talk to you about the debt ceiling, remember 97% of all debt in the history of the United States was created before President Biden got into office. From that, about 25 to 30% of all debt in the history of the United States was by Donald Trump. The debt that is created that needs to be paid by raising the debt ceiling was caused by the Republicans. They are the arsonists. So when they lecture us about fiscal responsibility, y'all are the fiscally irresponsible people who brought us into this situation. President Biden has reduced the deficit since he's been in office by $2 trillion. Donald Trump increased the deficit by close to $8 trillion. Those are the facts. MAGA Republicans are not fiscally responsible. What they are is give handouts to their billionaire friends. You got a yacht, you got private jets, you don't need to pay taxes on that. Full write-offs for you. And then you wonder why you can't raise revenue when you just give you those two examples right there. They give the handouts to their billionaire friends and screw over working class Americans, then try to confuse their base by starting stupid freaking culture wars while their own base is suffering from their ridiculous policies. So just so you know, when we're even talking about the debt ceiling, it is critical that we talk about it with the appropriate framework. And let's talk about what's went down, though. The MAGA Republicans have left. They fled. The Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, says that by June 1, America will default. By June 1, there will be a default. It will be a catastrophic event for the economy. And guess what? The RNC chair, Ronna Romney McDaniel, who doesn't use the Romney part of her name because Donald Trump told her not to, said that that possibility of default bodes very well for Republican presidential field. Play this clip.
And then you look at this debt ceiling crisis, you look at us about to default, and you see that the president took 90 days out from negotiating. He refused to come to the table with Republicans. Republicans have put a plan on the table. And this is an MIA president when it comes to problems that the American people are facing, whether it's energy independence, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's a broken border, whether it's crime surging in our streets. This is a president that is failing the American people. So I think that bodes very well for the Republican field.
I will now show you Democratic Congressmember Jayapal, and she set the record straight. Play this clip.
But you're willing to tank it if it's not?
They are willing to tank it. No. Sorry. That is exactly the problem, is when the media reports this as not their fault. And I'm just going to say, I know so many of you, I have so much respect for what you do, but let's tell the truth here. We are not tanking anything. The debt ceiling has been raised because we have an appropriations process, and during the appropriations process, the budget process, we negotiate. The Republicans can try to get whatever they can there, but then we agree. No, this is important. The American people should hear this. Then we agree on spending. Republicans agree, Democrats agree. We decide, we appropriate money based on what Congress has passed, legislation that we pass in this body. That is democracy. And then, when it's time, the debt ceiling is raised to accommodate what we have already passed, Republicans and Democrats, in a democratic process.
You know, and I'm not trying to be so crass, but it's like the media networks asking those questions are so dumb, are so freaking lazy. Like, how are you buying into the most absurd narrative? It's not, is it difficult research for you? Is it hard for you to find out that never before in our history has the debt ceiling been used as a negotiating wedge? And then ask, well, who's using it as a negotiating wedge? Like, was that logical leap so difficult to try to figure out? Or do they just not give a crap, frankly, about their jobs as journalists? They're so lazy, they just want, Democrats said this, Republicans said this, put them on a split screen, yell at each other, commercial break.
Yeah, but the good thing about it is we got a great response from Representative Jayapal, which I think was the clearest explanation of the problem that we've seen so far. And I was happy that she pushed back, because you have to tell them that question in and of itself is BS. It's based on an entirely false premise. And you have Kevin McCarthy going around to every camera that he could find, and he has one line. He goes, "It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's the Democrats. You know, he puts on that weird Kevin McCarthy voice that he puts on. The Democrats, you know, they're addicted to spending, and we're going to reel them in because the adults are finally in charge." Have you seen these people? You're going to call yourself the adults? You're going to act like,
you know, when I watch that, I don't know, like he is like an abuser of our nation, and he's like just a sick person. Like when he says it, it looks like he almost revels in the hurt that he causes and inflicts. Like, this is what I'm doing. Like an abusive mindset.
100%. I say it all the time when he speaks. It's his soul leaving the body, because Ben, you're exactly right. That's why he talks like that. That's why his eyes are so soulless. It's because he knows what he's doing is so detrimental to this nation, to the American people, and yet they don't care. You know, finally they actually admitted to it in that clip. You know, they said the truth by accident, I guess. When you play that clip back from Fox, the Republican Party, and we've said this on the show, but it's important to say it many times over again. It's important for our audience to understand it and tell their friends. They don't want to lead. They actually don't want to help this country. They think the best thing that could happen to this country is economic turmoil, is disaster to the economy, to our democracy. Why? So they can look and say, look at Biden. This is going to help us, the Republicans, in the next campaign race. This is amazing for us. And yet they just don't care. They don't look at the larger picture. It's me with all those Republicans. That's it.
It's that meme where what's the comedian's name? I'm drawing a blank right now, but it's who did this? Who would do such a thing? It's the Republicans caused the problem, and then they run on, look at the problem that the Democrats are overseeing. This isn't a problem. This is a manufactured crisis. We should not be in this problem in the first place. We're never in this problem. And all you have to do also is just look at the data throughout history on who runs up the deficits, who's irresponsible with finances. And we'll get to it a little later, but you don't only see it with the party at a national level. You see it in their committees. You see it in their local committees. You see it all over the country with the Republicans. They actually don't know how to manage money. They sincerely cannot be trusted to lead anything. And if you go back and look at Reagan, you look at Reagan exploding the deficit. You look at Bush 41 exploding the deficit. You look at Clinton getting us to a surplus. Then you look at Bush bringing us to a $1.2 trillion deficit. Then you see Obama once again having the deficit, bringing it way down. You see Trump come in, the deficit goes way up. You see Biden come in, the deficit comes back down. It's like clockwork. It's it's not like a one-off thing. It's every single time.
Look, this debt ceiling story should be the equivalent, if you're the media, of knowing your A, B, C, D, E, F. It's that freaking basic. If you are trying to overcomplicate something that is so freaking simple, how could we rely on large media or media in general to get any story right? By the way, I'm not relying on right-wing media for crap, but I mean, if this isn't obvious to what is supposed to be credible media sources, where they can't report on the basic fundamentals of this issue, and they have to both sides this issue, well, they are a complete and utter failure. How could we rely on them to deal with issues of actual some complexity? Again, this issue here, zero complexity.
And how
the
could
debt
we rely
ceiling gets raised? That simple.
And how could you rely on Republicans like Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene, or the people who are forced to listen to them like Kevin McCarthy? How do you listen to people like the woman we showed earlier from Georgia, the GOP chair, who thinks the earth is flat? They're the ones who are going to give us lessons on how the economy works or how climate change works. These are the people who we need to give a platform and be like, okay, we have to listen to these ideas, and we have to equally weigh those ideas with just like the truth of how things actually operate in the world. Somebody I do really want to highlight, though, is this representative from Texas. I think his name is Representative Greg Casar. He did a funny thing today to make a point during the hearings that they had on the debt ceiling that only the Democrats showed up to. And he actually went to the Republican side of the aisle to give a speech to show, look, they're not even here right now. And I thought this was a brilliant takedown. Watch this.
I'm Greg Casar. I'm a brand new member of Congress representing Texas, and I'm standing over here on the Republican side of the aisle, not because I'm a Republican. I'm a Democrat, but I want the American people to see that there isn't any Republicans in the seats here behind me on the eve of our default. Where are the Republicans? This is not a simple political disagreement. This is a dire crisis being imposed on the working people of America. The American people could lose millions of jobs. You could lose your house. Your kids could lose their job. People could lose their savings, and they aren't even here. They want to burn the house down and blame the firefighters for the flames. They're listening to Donald Trump, who's saying, do a default. That is shameful. It is dangerous. There's no patriotism in this. There's no morality in this. And we just need 5 Republicans to sign on to the discharge petition with us to save the American people. We need the American people to speak up about why the Republicans are not in these empty chairs. The American people can save us. The Democrats are aligned and ready to avoid a default and make sure that billionaires pay their fair share and folks aren't kicked off their health care or deprived of food.
And the discharge I was going to say the discharge petition is a way for the Democrats to circumvent the House Republicans and Kevin McCarthy by bringing a piece of legislation to the floor in a different way. And they have literally every single Democrat on board for the discharge position because the Democrats are united in this. The Democrats do not want to see America default on its debt. The problem is they would need, I believe it's at least 5 sane Republicans to say that they will do what both parties have done from the beginning of the debt ceiling, which is raise it and not send the country into a catastrophic default. They would just need to get 5 of them, but they cannot get 5 of them because there are not 5 sane Republicans at this moment in time who are willing to do what they view as being something politically risky. And I got to give a shout out too quickly to these young Democrats who I think are just absolutely crushing it out there. Sorry, Ben.
No, I was going to say these MAGA Republicans who are in the House of Representatives, they led the insurrection against the country. That's the only data point I need to know that they don't care about raising the debt ceiling. They wanted to overthrow our entire form of government. And then afterwards, they sing songs with the January 6th insurrectionists. These are people who were supposed to be able to negotiate. We covered live those 14 rounds where Kevin McCarthy was an elected speaker and had to cut these deals with Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. By the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene now, as part of that deal, presides as Speaker of the House designee almost on a daily basis. Do we have the clip where she called for decorum? So just so everybody knows, obviously Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House, but one of the things that very powerful members of the House of Representatives, it is such an honor when you basically become like the designated Speaker of the House for the day. You're referred to as the Speaker, and you basically control the proceedings in a given day. Marjorie Taylor Greene's been given that responsibility almost on a daily basis. She presides over there. This is what happened this week when she called for decorum. Play this clip.
I wanted to also listen to she doesn't know how to actually do the job. And if you listen very carefully, you could hear whoever the individual is to her right whispers in her ear and says, tell them that you want to call an order to decorum. He says it and accidentally sets her up for this incredible moment of humiliation.
The members are reminded to abide by decorum of the House. The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
The House will be in order. You invited QAnon shaman into the House. Like, you caused an insurrection there. Let's make the House in order. It is pitiful, but like, you're supposed to negotiate with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Imagine saying anything in your place of work and having hundreds of your coworkers laugh in your face. Like, that is nightmare. Like, I would literally have nightmares like about something like that. And that happened to March.
You know how we always say too, this Republican Party, they're also angry with Hollywood, right? They're because they're failed actors themselves. And so when Marjorie Taylor Greene's trying to preside over Congress, she can't even come up with a line. She has to go line. And that's when she line. And that's when she gets fed. And that's why she repeats it like such a robot. And it just made for such a beautiful moment on C-SPAN.
I could watch that all day. That was
The
so
one
funny.
hearing that the MAGA Republicans did hold had nothing to do with the debt ceiling. It was about gas stoves, right? The MAGA Republicans created this fake conspiracy because one of these independent agencies within the government basically said that they're exploring safer ways to make gas stoves on a purely voluntary basis. And the commission is like
new
the
tech, safer tech,
the
like,
Independent Consumer Safety Product Commission or whatever. And it was just one individual on the board made the comment. They opened it up to rules and comments like, how do we make gas stoves safer? And this is one of the things why you can't negotiate with MAGA Republicans, because normally you'd be like, okay, let's submit our ideas. And MAGA Republicans go, the Democrats are taking away your gas stoves. So that was spread throughout Fox. Every day we heard about gas stoves, in addition to green M&Ms and Dr. Seuss. But Democrats are taking away your gas stoves. They repeated it. And then I turned on C-SPAN the other day, and I saw this incredible clip of Jared Moskowitz that we're about to play, the new Democratic superstar freshman from Florida. And on the bottom of it, it said like gas stove hearing. And I'm like, this clip is incredible. But I'm like, are they holding hearings on gas stoves? Like, are the MAGA is that a typo, or are the MAGA Republicans really holding a hearing on gas stoves? So I looked at the docket of the hearings, and it's a hearing on gas stoves. And it's like Democrats to seize your gas stove hearing. They held a whole hearing on it, on a conspiracy that they made up. But play this clip of Democratic superstar freshman Congress member Jared Moskowitz during the gas stove hearing.
You know, and it's warm and you're in the kitchen and you stare into the knobs of your beautiful stainless steel beauty. I got it. I get the bravado. We can pry your gas stove from your cold dead hands, or give me my gas stove, or give me death. You know, I have a 6-burner double oven range that sits on legs. I mean, I miss her right now as we're talking about it. And so I think, because it's a two-party system, I think when my colleagues across the aisle, the other party, show leadership, the leadership of our times that is desperately needed, Democrats like myself should commend them. And I want to apologize on behalf of the Democratic Party that we have decided to put kids' safety in their neighborhoods, from getting gunned down in movie theaters or grocery stores or school churches or synagogues. We as Democrats have clearly lost our way, that we are not focused on appliances. And so we're finally seeing our friends across the aisle stand up for parents all across the country as they tuck their kid in at night, as they dress them for school in the morning, as they are worried that they may not come home. My friends across the aisle are telling those parents, you can breathe a sigh of relief, that the grand appliance party is going to make sure your gas stove goes nowhere. You might own a small business, and you are worried about how you're going to pay your employees if we default. The good news for you today is that if you have to shutter your business because the country defaults, your gas stove will still be there. And so, you know, I look forward to the legislation of our time, the Appliance Bill of Rights, that might come in front of this committee.
And you see, I mean, he
Brilliant.
is brilliant.
Moskowitz going for Congressional Rookie of the Year. I mean, just
Rookie of the Year.
absolutely brilliant.
Total
There's a
rookie of the
lot of
year.
good Democratic messaging out there right now. One thing I also want to mention about this debt ceiling conversation, just look up Section 4 of the 14th Amendment. You'll see that it states the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. I believe if you look at the timing right now, I'll give you another Ben prediction right here.
Ooh.
Hey, you've got Memorial Day weekend coming up. And by the way, hope everybody has a restful and enjoyable holiday. And if you are listening to this during the long weekend, we just want to tell you to enjoy it and thank you for all of your support. We still have a lot of shows, so don't go anywhere here. I'm just giving you the time frame. I think that when Congress comes back, I think we're talking about on Tuesday, right? Because that puts us, I think Thursday is the 1st. And I think ultimately President Biden will hold a national address or a major press conference either that Tuesday or Wednesday regarding his plan, whether that relates to Section 4 of the 14th Amendment is where I think he will probably go and explain what's going on, show the data, show the facts about what Republicans have done and said before about the debt ceiling, and really have that important address to the United States. I do not believe President Biden will allow the United States to default on its debt. And I think it will be a very powerful event and moment when he does that. If the MAGA Republicans do not somehow stop acting like MAGA Republicans. I do want to say this too. I'm noticing in the chat room below a lot of new members of the YouTube site. I see those badges on the YouTube members. And so if anyone wants to know, like, where are these badges coming from? If you see on YouTube, there's that $ on the bottom right of the YouTube where the chat is. You click the live chat, you'll see this $ kind of button on the bottom right, and you could become a member of the YouTube site. That's different than our Patreon, but you become a member of the YouTube. And if you're already a member, you can actually buy memberships for other members. And I see other people doing it, and then gift memberships to other people who are part of the Midas Touch community. We've got a lot more show. We want to talk about what Special Counsel Jack Smith is doing and how Donald Trump says that he believes he's going to be indicted. Again, you can check out that $ button to get those memberships as well. And let's take a quick break. And when we return, let's talk about everything Special Counsel Jack Smith. Let's take a quick break.
Now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Mosh. As the years progress, it's so important to stay on top of your mental health and fitness. Frankly, life, it gets busy. And sometimes you end up sacrificing good foods and snacks for unhealthy ones strictly because they may seem more convenient. Now, whether at the gym, on the go, or between meals with the fam, Mosh protein bars are the smart snack to keep your brain and body fit, fueled, and feeling good. With 6 delicious flavors, each Mosh bar comes packed with 12 grams of protein and made with ingredients that support brain health like ashwagandha, lion's mane, collagen, and omega-3s. At 160 calories and only 1 gram of sugar, Mosh protein bars are the guilt-free snack your brain and body will crave. Your brain, it's your number one tool, which is why Mosh protein bars were mindfully formulated by some of the world's top neuroscientists and functional nutritionists. Founded by Patrick Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver, Mosh is a mission-driven brain health and wellness company that donates a portion of all proceeds to support women's brain research through the Women's Alzheimer's movement at Cleveland Clinic. I absolutely love Mosh protein bars. They're delicious, they're savory, they're the perfect smart snack to keep your brain and body fit, fueled, and feeling good. We're constantly doing different videos or podcasts here, or just a bunch of different tasks. So I'm able to enjoy Mosh protein bars easily and enjoyably throughout the day whenever I need it. Don't settle with a mediocre snack when you can nourish your body and mind with the fuel it needs to succeed. So whether you're at the gym, on the go, or just living your best life, Mosh protein bars will keep your brain and body fit, fueled, and feeling good. Head to moshlife.com/Midas to save 20% off plus free shipping on your first 6-count trial pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on your first 6-count trial pack, which includes all 6 mouth-watering flavors. MOSHLIFE.com/Midas.
We are back live here on the Midas Touch
Two quick
podcast.
points, two super quick points.
Oh,
I have Mosh every single morning before I go to the gym. It is amazing. So definitely hit that link. It's in the description. They're amazing. My favorite's the peanut butter. Then also, while that was going on, someone in the chat mentioned, well, hey, Daniel Goldman is up for Rookie of the Year too from Congress. So, hey, I don't know what the odds are between Moskowitz and Goldman or any of the other great
bracket, Jordy. We might need a Rookie of the Year bracket.
Need a bracket. I don't know. I think Moskowitz is minus 200 right now. I know you guys don't know what that means, but that's okay.
Ben, you notice
you guys is spreading Ben.
You know what Jordy's been doing every episode. He always finds a way to work in the workout. It's I always have my mosh after my big workout. Last thing he was like, hey,
gearing up for summer.
Just want to mention that I benched a lot of weight today. Like he's always finding a way to slip it in. I'm just gonna call it out.
Looking good, Jay. Looking good. Hey, all right, let's talk about Special Counsel Jack Smith because he is looking good, much better than. Have you seen? I mean, Jack Smith is Jack, Jordy. I mean, how much did you squat?
They should call him Jack Smith. That's what I'm talking about.
Nice. Yeah, Jack Smith.
Let me show you the post that Donald Trump just made on his social media platform. Pull it up right here. Donald Trump writing. A very interesting situation is taking place. While I was in office, Bill Barr, as Attorney General, was very slow and unenthusiastic about going after Joe and Hunter Biden regarding their possible criminal activity. Much was being reported in the media. It was hard getting him to move, but I always felt he believed you just don't go after president, VPs, and presidential candidates very cavalierly. I understood that and was sort of okay with it. Now Biden thugs want to indict me for nothing. By the way, Donald Trump learned the word cavalierly from the Durham report because the only thing that Durham made a finding of, that's where he's getting the word from in the findings. Yeah, because Donald Trump doesn't know. That's too big of a word for him. That the FBI acted too cavalierly in opening up a full investigation instead of a preliminary investigation after Durham lost both of the trials that he had, like in devastatingly humiliating fashion for a prosecutor. His entire report, where all the MAGA Republicans are like, based on this, there should be a prosecution. Yo, his job was that, okay? The entire point of his report was that if there were crimes, to recommend prosecutions. He lost the two prosecutions in devastating fashion, and all he stated was the FBI may have acted too cavalierly, but really too cavalierly when Donald Trump yells, Russia, if you're listening, steal the documents from the DNC.
Please remember the Don Jr. email, especially later in the summer. I would love to see that help from the Russia, especially later in the summer.
Doesn't seem too cavalierly, but I digress. So Donald Trump admits to another crime in that post, that he used Bill Barr to try to target Joe Biden there, number one. That's what he says in there. But also he says that he believes he's going to be indicted. Now they want to indict me. He goes, for nothing, not for nothing. You can't steal thousands of government records, conceal them, hide them, lie about them. They don't belong to you. Donald Trump's lawyers repeatedly told Donald Trump that it was criminal. Donald Trump knew it was criminal, but what did he say? Mine. And he wanted it, obviously, it's my opinion, but obviously for transactional purposes is what he wanted to do it. He's put up posts before. Nixon changed his that he stole for $18 million. You don't have to search for the smoking. Like, he says it.
That's why I love some of these breaking news reports out of some of these publications, which are like breaking news, bombshell. Sources say Donald Trump is expecting to be, get this, he's expecting to be indicted. And I'm like, yeah, he said it. He said it. Yeah, he says it every day now. It sure seems like it. But yeah, he knows.
And look, we reported last week though about, and again, it was kind of like a that his that he was being probed for communications with foreign countries through the Trump organization and how that relates to his theft of these government records. But a bombshell Washington Post report, a true bombshell report that talked about how 2 employees of Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago moved boxes of classified papers the day day before the Justice Department came to retrieve the classified documents in response to a subpoena. Just you'll recall the timeline. The subpoena was issued in May of 2022. The Department of Justice, their top counterintelligence official, showed up at Mar-a-Lago on June 3rd at the invitation of Donald Trump and Trump staffers and lawyers, who said, we've got all of the documents now. On June 3rd, 38 documents, June 3rd of 2022, 38 documents were turned over to the Department of Justice. An attestation under penalty of perjury, like a declaration, was turned over to the DOJ that was all the classified documents that existed. Obviously, that was a lie. On August 8th of 22, when a valid search warrant was executed on Mar-a-Lago, over 100 classified documents and thousands of other government records were found, and hundreds of other folders with classified markings that were empty were also found as well. So the question is, what happened? What was going on here? Well, we now know about these two employees who were moving these boxes around. We heard about one, Walt Nauta, but we didn't know the timing, right? That it was the day before the Department of Justice showed up. Now we learn about this other employee who's represented by a guy named John Irving, who won't reveal the name of the employee, but the DOJ's been speaking to this other employee. The other employee was just helping Walt Nauta, like seems like a poor guy who just saw Walt Nauta like moving boxes around.
I think it was a maintenance worker or something. Yeah.
Hey, can I help you with that? It looks heavy, but the classified documents were in that. By the way, I shouldn't say poor guy. I don't know much about the guy, but at the end of the day, Donald Trump's political action committee is paying for all of those lawyers, just to kind of remind you of that fact. The Washington Post also reports that Donald Trump, along with his aides, carried out dress rehearsals for how to move and hide the classified records, even before his office received this subpoena. So they knew something was going to be coming. So they wanted to try to hide it. And another bombshell that was kind of buried in the article, but I think is probably even just as important as those other pieces, which is the last time the grand jury met regarding the document investigation was May 5th. So about 20 plus days now where that grand jury hasn't met, which basically tells me that timing, that gap means the investigation's pretty much over. A memo is being prepared where a recommendation to Merrick Garland is being made. Merrick Garland has to sign off on it, but I do not believe at all that Merrick Garland would reject a recommendation from Jack Smith. If Jack Smith makes the recommendation, I can say with a great degree of confidence, I know those in the chat may disagree with me, but Merrick Garland is not going to reject, after this whole process, a recommendation to indict Donald Trump. And for those who are skeptical of me, I would remind you that many of you were skeptical of Alvin Bragg. And I said, let's just remember, I think Alvin Bragg's going in this direction. And I think Alvin Bragg has now made a believer of a lot of people who weren't Alvin Bragg believers before. Merrick Garland will not reject that if that's the recommendation by special counsel Jack Smith. It would be incredibly humiliating to Jack Smith after all of this work, after placing Jack Smith in basically jeopardy for his life based on the threats that Donald Trump made, to make Jack Smith come from Europe, where he had a great career as a war crimes prosecutor, to get a recommendation that you reject. That's not that's not the way it works. It's not happening that way. But Brett, those are really, really big stories. And, other reports, of course, and this is kind of like obvious. If Trump's saying he's going to be indicted, he's obviously being warned by lawyers, get ready to be indicted. But other reports have come out this past week that his lawyers have said, no, we fully expect you to be indicted. And remember this other timing here, that Tim Parlatore, Donald Trump's lead lawyer in connection with the investigation by special counsel Jack Smith, Parlatore resigned and Parlatore left. And Parlatore criticized the whole strategy. Parlatore, you got to give him credit. He's smart. His strategy was the only defense that Donald Trump had. And he was basically saying it's bullshit, but he was saying it's a big misunderstanding here. The packing was screwed up. There was spillage. This was all a big misunderstanding. It prematurely went to the DOJ, and please forgive us. It was a misunderstanding. Total BS. but the best defense at a technical level you can make in this situation. Then Trump went on that so-called town hall. I took it. Everybody knows I took it. And then his lawyers went on, his other lawyers, not his new lawyers. Jim Trusty went on CNN or one of these channels and was like, he could take whatever he wants to take, which is completely false and criminal. So that's my Jack Smith update.
Well, it's the story of Trump from the beginning, right? He wants to do what he wants to do. And when somebody gets in the way, they ultimately get boxed out, or they're forced to leave, or they leave on their own recognizance, whatever it is. And then he's left at the end of the day with only the sycophants, with only the people who are willing to parrot his own beliefs. So when we saw that letter the other day, that absurd letter that we had read on the show, the letter to Merrick Garland, basically saying, it was like a letter to the manager, Jack Smith, your employee Jack Smith is being quite mean to me. Stop the investigation. Like it was, let's face it, it was a Truth Social tweet on lawyer letterhead. It was so clearly dictated by Donald Trump. And right now, he just has a team, it seems like, that will just do whatever he wants, use whatever legal argument that he comes up with, whatever he concocts. And it might work on Truth Social with those folks. It's not going to work in a court of law. It's not going to work for Merrick Garland. It's not going to work for Jack Smith. So as they say, if you're going to be your own lawyer, you might have a fool for a client or something to that effect, as you lawyers say. But meanwhile, Ben, I mean, people keep going to jail for Donald Trump. I mean, should we talk about the Stewart Rhodes case quickly? The Oath Keeper sentenced to 18 years in prison today by Judge Amit Mehta. Brutal hearing, following it piece by piece, thanks to some of the reporters on the ground there in the courtroom. I know this morning I had my eyes glued to Scott McFarlane's Twitter, just watching every single update along the way. And what was so shocking, I think, to me about the Stewart Rhodes case is you had his lawyer come out there, and his attorney seemed to try to position this as, it's kind of Trump's fault. This event, this January 6th event, it would have happened with Rhodes or without Rhodes. This is, and then you had Stewart Rhodes come on, and Stewart Rhodes really flipped the entire legal argument on its head. And basically it literally said, I am a political prisoner. We are out there to get rid of Antifa. He went into this insane MAGA-laced tirade in front of the judge, basically destroying his whole legal argument right before Judge Mehta was about to sentence him. I mean, have you ever seen anything like that?
No, but let me tell you what his strategy was. I should also mention that the other guilty individual, Kelly Meggs, was sentenced to 12 years for seditious conspiracy. Also,
and I have my theory on his strategy as well. Let's see if it aligns.
I bet you our theory, so he goes, the sentencing guidelines at the max are 25 years. The judge on the low end is, if I show remorse, will probably give me 15 years. But I'm not going to get less than 15 years. So who's my audience? My audience isn't the judge. My audience is a future Republican president. So let me just go all in to try to make the claim for why I should be pardoned first. So it was, the view was, if I have to serve, the calculation was, if I have to serve 4 to 8 years, and then I'll get pardoned by a future Republican president if a Republican president takes office. He was speaking to his future pardon request, and we all in the pro-democracy community should try to make sure that absolutely never happens. But clearly that's what he was thinking.
Yeah, that was exactly my theory. That he's basically speaking to Donald Trump there and is trying to say, I'm your loyal soldier. And if you get into office, please pardon me. Look, I stuck with you to the end. And his whole thing was just a deranged MAGA rant. I mean, he was blaming the left, blaming Antifa. He even said, he implicated Trump in a lot of ways. This is a direct quote from Stewart Rhodes. He said, I always focused on what President Trump could do as president to invoke the Insurrection Act. He said that prosecutions like the one against him were dividing the country and making it worse. Quote, what we cannot have, we absolutely cannot have, is a group of citizens. Oh, no, this is the judge speaking out to him. But there was another comment that Rhodes made that's basically like, you're just making all these Trump supporters, everyone on the right, you're coming for people on the right. You're trying to make us all seem violent and stupid and this and that. It's, once again, they can't take responsibility for anything. And I don't even think we played this clip from earlier, but even I don't think we played it, but Ron DeSantis was on the Clay Travis show today. And one of the dangerous statements that he made is he was asked what he would do in these sorts of situations. Would he pardon the January 6th insurrectionists? And he kind of gave a roundabout answer to give himself a little bit of cover, but he essentially said he'd look into it and he'd consider pardoning the terrorists who attacked the United States, including Donald Trump. That's utterly disqualifying right there on its face. That's going to be the first thing that you say about your platform is that you're going to free the terrorists who try to destroy our country and overthrow our government. Like, what are you doing? But the judge was not having it in this case. He said to him, you are not a political prisoner. What we cannot have, we absolutely cannot have, is a group of citizens who, because they didn't like the outcome, were then prepared to take up arms in order to foment a revolution. And this is from the quote that you read earlier in the intro. You, sir, to Stuart Rhodes, present an ongoing threat and a peril to this country, to the republic, and to the very fabric of our democracy. I mean, those are strong words coming from a judge as you are about to get your sentence to go to prison for a long, long, long time.
And all true. Each and every one of those words is true. And it is so disgusting that you have modern MAGA Republican leadership who just embraces January 6th terrorists. There used to be the dog whistles where you'd be like, wait, what? Did you hear that? Did they say that? Mm-hmm. And then the whistles became louder and louder and louder. With Trump, they became sirens, right? And now they're just like the loudest of the loudest amplified bullhorn. They want to take away our democracy. The one piece right now that's held things together, fortunately, is that they're idiots. It is an idiocracy. Like it is a combination of fascism meets idiocracy. Like, Brett, when you showed that clip earlier of Marjorie Taylor Greene, where she called for decorum, like she didn't even know the basic rule. Like before even sitting in the chair, like they don't read things. And again, going back to a theme, it's one of the reasons why they're so miserable and they want to take away our books. They want to take away books. They don't want people to gain the knowledge because they don't read. But lots of people can read lots of ideas and can process them at a level where they go, that's interesting. I agree with that. I don't agree with that. I agree with that. And read the book. These MAGA Republicans, they don't read. They just say shit. Here's how I feel. Okay, what's that based on? What you're just saying words that's based on your hatred. And that Marjorie Taylor Greene example was a microcosm. Just read the freaking rule. Okay, you have this honor to have that role against all odds. It is a disgrace. You can't even read, okay, these are the basic rules if I hold this position and how I call for decorum. And let's just talk about these two other examples that are kind of microcosms, that they're just so irresponsible in everything. I'll give you one example. We could talk about CPAC. Remember the organization? They used to be, they still are, I guess, like the largest Republican political action group. They hold the big CPAC conventions. At the most recent one, they did one where it was called "We Are All Domestic Terrorists," right? But when you look under the hood of all of these organizations, you actually don't have to look under the hood. They freaking show you the hood, right away, and they show you who they are within seconds. Like there's always issues with them, right? Jim Jordan covered up sex assault allegations. James Comer, the head of the oversight MAGA Republican, was accused of very serious abuse, right? Every single one of them has a story like that, right? So CPAC is led with someone who is accused of serious sexual assault by a Republican, by the way. A Republican staffer made that accusation. But now the Republican treasurer of the organization said the following in a 13-page letter. A cancer has been metastasizing within this organization for years. and then went on to detail all of the financial improprieties that took place. This treasurer talked about how he has lost confidence in the organization and he can no longer solicit donations in good faith. He blamed the leader, the one who's under the sexual assault allegations. He blamed Matt Schlapp. That's why I think that's where I got the schnot from.
Schlapp and schnot.
He blamed Schlapp for excessive staff departures and suggested that violations of the organization's bylaws could expose the institution to lawsuits or even criminal prosecution, and then focused on how the organization diverted money to Schlapp's personal attorneys and to other things that the money shouldn't have went to, and retaliated against people who called him out. You can look at any of these organizations, like the NRA, for example. I think they were found to engage in a fraudulent bankruptcy, and all of the lavish spending by the head of the NRA and all of the board members like revolted and talked about the financial improprieties that took place there. And then
they might not all be they might not all be criminals in the Republican Party, but they certainly have a "We're open for business" sign to criminals on the front door of the Republican Party because people find them.
Texas Attorney General, MAGA Republican Ken Paxton, who's been under indictment for, I think, securities fraud since 2015. Like, he's been dodging it and moving it from all of these courtrooms since 2015. There's been that indictment. Well, the House Republicans there, these House Republicans, voted to have this investigative committee that investigated Ken Paxton for not an insignificant period of time. They found all of this misconduct that he engaged in, specifically his conduct giving all of these benefits to a very wealthy real estate, MAGA Republican real estate guy and donor to Ken Paxton. And then Ken Paxton tried to cover it up. And when these whistleblowers complained, hey, you can't do that, he fired all of them. And then he settled with the whistleblowers for $3.3 million of taxpayer money at the end of the day. So serious misconduct there. And what does Ken Paxton do? He goes, the liberal Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House is a Republican. The whistleblowers were Republican. Like, it is just a Republican shit show.
And the committee who recommended the indictment, I believe, was 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. But anytime, like a cult, anytime someone goes against the cult leader or goes against the center of power, in this case, it's Paxton, all of a sudden you become persona non grata. And what that means here is you become a liberal. You become a rhino, whatever term they want to use. You're certainly not a Republican if you're not willing to put up with my criminality.
Right. And at first they came for the socialists, and I wasn't a socialist. So, I wasn't worried and I didn't speak out. They came for, the trade unionist. I didn't speak out. I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one to speak out for me because I didn't speak out for anybody. I was the last person left. And look, it's the reality. You see what the MAGA Republicans are doing. If you're not a Trump cult member, you're all of a sudden a rhino.
Schlapp did the same thing, by the way. Schlapp would always blame the left is attacking me. The left is coming after.
You're
it's
right.
like it's a Republican staffer who worked for Herschel Walker. That's not the left, buddy. They always scapegoat people, and that's how they further divide the country and try to deflect from their own BS.
So tying it all together, when you look at that New York Times headline, the fight to define extremism, and they both sides the story. They both sides the issue. There's extreme Republicans. There's extreme Democrats. I say no. It is journalistic malpractice what is taking place. But fortunately, the people know that the people don't want to be gaslit. And I am just so honored to see this platform continue to grow. Again, I don't view this as some sterile show or some sterile network. This is a community, a pro-democracy community led by you, where the values of decency and compassion, intelligence, supporting our democracy, just being supportive people, or just trying our best. waking up in the day thinking about how can I do something positive or productive to help out. It's why I love this community so much. And none of this is possible without you, the Midas Mighty. We are so grateful for you. So as we approach this long weekend, and you may be listening to this during the long weekend or right before, we just want to express our eternal thanks and gratitude for you, because we know you don't just listen to it and turn it off. You tell your family members and friends and coworkers and colleagues and everybody you know about this podcast, about the Midas Touch Network, about all of our other great shows and our great hosts, and you spread the knowledge that you learn here. Knowledge is power, and within the Midas Mighty community, I know that anything is possible and that our democracy is safe. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. We just hit 1.2. Let's try to get to that 1.5 million mark soon. If you watch on YouTube, please make sure you also subscribe to the audio podcast. Whatever device you use to get audio podcasts, just search Midas Touch Podcast, hit subscribe, leave a 5-star review there. Our audio podcast numbers have been phenomenal this past week. Let's keep on growing that audio podcast community together. And if you're not subscribed on both platforms, make sure you are. So to our audio podcast listeners, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Check out store.midastouch.com for the best pro-democracy gear. We've got new gear that is selling out. We've got the I Like My Beer Cold and Gay. We've got Hot Democracy.
You got to say what it is. It's a koozie. It's a beer koozie. So, you know, put it on your Bud Light or whatever better beer you drink.
You've got the Hot Democracy summer shirt. You got Midas Pride. You've got Drag is Not a Crime. And Jordy, there's an extra benefit I know we want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. With the Midas Pride collection and the Drag is Not a Crime, those go a percentage of the profits for those sales go directly to the Trevor Project, which helps at-risk LGBTQ youth. So definitely, you know, check that out. Do some good while rocking some Midas gear. What's better than that?
Jay, I just want to say you crushed the merch designs. These are good.
Let's go.
They're so fun. We got a lot of variety in this stuff.
Did we order a new batch of the I Like My Beer?
Yeah, Jordy completely. The one thing you did is completely underestimated the demand for the koozies. The I Like My Beer Cold and Gay koozies. They sold out within the first
I can tell you with guarantee though, we did re-up and we have a whole bunch coming back in. Yeah. Have them in stock right now. Store.MidasTouch.com. Go check them out while they still last.
Also check us out at patreon.com/MidasTouch. patreon.com/MidasTouch. There we have various membership tiers. Don't worry if you can't do it, but if you can, it goes a long way to support the programming. We are not funded by outside investors, so we rely on these memberships as a way to help fund this network, which I think is the best way to do it, because I don't want to be beholden to outside interest groups trying to say, here's what you gotta do. That would probably drive me crazy. Thank you. It also says there, thank you to our honorary producers. There's a honorary producer tier where you also get a poster commemorating that you're an honorary producer of the show and your name appears at the end of the show. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Midas Touch podcast. We so appreciate you all. Jordy, take it out.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty.
Lock him up. Indictment season is upon us. Celebrate with the new Indictment season t-shirt and v-neck exclusively at store.midastouch.com.